Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, a nationally ranked community-focused bank with over 30 locations throughout Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, and North Carolina. Who you choose to bank with can make all the difference. Visit firstbank.com to learn more. What's going on, Hokie Nation? It's Rivalry Week. It's Virginia Tech and Virginia coming up this Saturday in Charlottesville. If the Hokies win, they're going bowling in their second year under Brent Pry. We're talking all that and more. It's episode 332 of the Tech Sideline podcast, and it starts right now. We record on Wednesday, November 22nd from our Corporate Research Center Tech Sideline studios. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead, leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Do us a favor, refer the show to a friend as well. The Tech Sideline podcast is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, but the TSL podcast is also brought to you by the Hokie Way. Coming next Tuesday, November 28th, the Hokie Way launches their 2023 year-end fundraiser, Stone by Stone, a donation match campaign aimed at raising funds for Virginia Tech NIL and to benefit local charities. Transfer portal season is right around the corner, Hokies. Get ready to make a difference with your tax-deductible donation. All right, we got most of the football crew on set today. To my right, lead analyst and columnist, Mr. Chris Coleman. Across the way, senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. No fourth chair today. D. Cunha is on the road. Producing behind the scenes, Mr. Nick Brown. And I'm your host, Giovanni Heater. Well, Rivalry Week, fellas. We know what's on the table, right? It's that marquee spot that we said at the beginning of the year Virginia Tech was going to have a chance to get to in order to call this season a success. And here we are after the chaos of a 1-3 start, after this great revamped offense, a chance to go 6-6 on Saturday against the Wahoos.
Kind of where I thought we'd be before the season, just took a different route to get there. And it's not like Virginia Tech has never been in this situation before. It's happened multiple times in the past where they need to beat UVA to qualify for a bowl game. That being said, it's the first time for Brent Pry. It's the first time for the UVA staff also. It's going to be the first time for a large number of players on both rosters. I mean, thanks to the transfer portal and things like that, there's a whole lot of key players for both teams, particularly Virginia Tech, that weren't even a part of that 2021 game, which was the last time this happened. And for a large number of players, since the game didn't happen last year, it's going to be their first Tech UVA game in general. So it's a scenario that we're all familiar with, whether it's media or fans, but it's a scenario that most of the coaches on both teams and a large number of players are not familiar with.
Yeah, we were going through making requests this week. Like, who do we want to talk to? We're like, well, let's get a Virginia guy who's played in the rivalry before. And we're going through the roster. We're like, there's not a whole lot of guys that are like big contributors. And we got Josh Fuga eventually, who talked about it yesterday. But it's not a ton of guys from Virginia that have played in this rivalry a ton. And some of, obviously a lot of the big guys that Virginia Tech's had the last couple of years have been transfers, and they haven't played in this game before. So it sort of speaks to how Virginia Tech has recruited in the Commonwealth over the years, and also to the transfer portal, and how many guys are new to this whole thing. So I'm sure there's an introductory course that they have. They've got a lot of guys on staff. I'm sure J.C. Price can get them up to speed pretty quick on the rivalry.
Well, that was a question I had for you guys. Do you think it feels a little bit different because of that, as some of these kids are coming in as outsiders, didn't necessarily grow up with it, and now that Virginia Tech is trying to put a footprint in the state of Virginia, can they kind of get back to that? Because it does feel like the rivalry just a little bit kind of lost the clash that it once had when Virginia was really, really good back in the 90s.
I've got friends who played for Tech in the early to mid 90s, and they knew at least half of Virginia's players. I mean, back then, Lynchburg had good football, and you had guys from Lynchburg and Roanoke going head to head from both teams. You had Cornell Brown versus the Barber brothers and things like that. I mean, those guys grew up playing against each other, and that's what's been robbed from this rivalry, is recruiting has gone more national. Some of which was going to happen either way, but some of which was due to lack of focus on in-state recruiting by previous staffs, both at Tech and UVA. I'm going up and down Tech's starting lineup here. Daquan Felton is from Virginia, but he transferred in, from Norfolk State, but he is from Virginia. The Moores are from Pennsylvania. Goodness. There's one offensive starter for Virginia Tech, it looks like, from the state of Virginia. And on defense, you've got Powell Ryland, who's a transfer. You got Jaden McDonald, although the McDonald twins are originally from North Carolina, I believe, and they moved to Salem. You've got Stroman, and then you've got Fuga, who sometimes starter, sometimes isn't. But yeah, it's just, I don't know enough about the UVA players to know where they're from. It's just not a lot of, you look here at a guy like Daquan Wright, he might not really know anybody on Virginia's team, whereas 15, 20 years ago, he would have known probably 20 guys.
Yeah, I think maybe it feels a little less personal than it was at times. I remember one of those first games I was here, James Gale was just trash talking a storm. Like, it was personal for James Gale out there. I forget the tackle he was going up against in that game, but they were trash talking the entire game. Like, it was there, a little scrapping, I think, at some points of that game. Danny Cole, before that 2011 game, gave an impassioned speech about, how you don't lose to these guys, and they're talking about how they're going to come out and beat us. What was the score of that game? 38-0?
38-0.
I think it was.
Danny Cole was from Charlottesville, and I don't think UVA offered him.
Yeah. And he was Lexington in high school, I believe.
That's right.
When he came down here. But, that was personal for him in this game. And it maybe not quite as personal with some of these guys because they don't have that in-state connection. But I think when you get out there, it's about the laundry, and you see the other, the other school, the team's colors, and you pick it up pretty quickly. Once you're in the heat of battle, I think you understand, like, okay, this is a rivalry. This is real. Maybe not quite as personal and as heated as it was for some of these guys in the past, though.
Let's talk about this Virginia team a little bit. They're led by Anthony Calandria. Kind of an interesting quarterback situation, though, going on in Charlottesville. Do you think he's the guy on Saturday, Chris?
Probably. I mean, if Tony Muskett is still banged up and he was unable to play this past week against Duke, then it would be Calandria. The coaches up there, they seem to favor Muskett. Like, he was a starter coming into the season, but he got hurt. Calandria played, and then Muskett got over his injury and came back, and then they put Muskett in. And Muskett was their quarterback in their biggest win against UNC. I think they feel more comfortable with him. His highs aren't as high as Calandria's, but his lows aren't nearly as low either. Calandria is an exciting true freshman who is just as likely to win the game for you as he is to lose it, to be honest. I think they're a little more settled with Tony Muskett. So it seems like the coaches favor Muskett, but is he 100% this week? I have no idea. So when in doubt, I'm saying that Calandria is going to be their guy, I think. Yeah,
I think if there's any doubt about Muskett's health, you don't want to put it behind that offensive line back there. Calandria goes out and makes plays. I mean, maybe just ride the hot hand in this game. I mean, he threw for 300-some yards, close to 300
I think his last
week.
2 games have been his best.
Yeah, and, like we said before, he plays with just extreme confidence. Like, I mean, he's the guy that goes down and, throws the touchdown that has no prayer in the last second, and then gets up and celebrates like he just hit somebody with an RKO. Like that is Anthony Calandria gets the penalty for it. That was the end of that NC State game that they come back and lose that game, end up losing that game. But I feel like UVA feels like it has something with him as a quarterback going forward. And your 3-8 season, maybe you look forward a little bit and you go, let's roll with this guy. Let's get him in a rivalry game, see what he can do. And, honestly, he scares you a little bit when he's out there. Now, he might lose the game for UVA because, he's a little cavalier with the ball when he's throwing it downfield. But, I think that he can make some plays. And, when you got Malik Washington out there and a quarterback who can get him the ball, the offense can do some things out there.
Let's talk a little bit more about Calandria here. Chris, it feels like he's gotten significantly better game by game, maybe with the exception of that hiccup against Georgia Tech, but still, he really wasn't bad in that ball game. What's most notable is the fact that his interceptions have gotten better. He's taking care of the ball better. Threw a pick against JMU. By the way, he threw for 377 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game as well in a shootout, and we know JMU's good. At Maryland, did throw 3 interceptions, 2 against NC NC State. Then it's gotten cleaned up. One against Georgia Tech. He balled out against Louisville, 314 yards, a touchdown, did throw a pick, but also had 89 yards on the ground against Louisville, and that's one of the top defenses in the ACC, if not the top defense in the ACC. And then against Duke, 278 yards, 21 of 30. Didn't throw a single interception. Had 3 touchdowns through the air, 66 yards on the ground. I mean, that's pretty darn good football.
Yeah, it is. And he's played better down the stretch, I think. I think, but their offensive line has also stabilized a little bit the last couple games, and I think that's helped things out. I would say he's the ultimate, like, if you walk into a casino, let me check my bank account. I've got no issue throwing all my money down on this right now. I'll get paid again next week, right? It'll be fine. That's the type he strikes me.
Sounds like scared money don't make money.
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like.
I think Aaron McFarland would like him very much.
Yeah, he goes out there and he puts it on the line. Like I said, he throws it deep and he doesn't care really who comes down with it down the field. But sometimes you got to take those shots, and it's paid off for them sometimes, and sometimes it's gotten them in trouble.
I think as far as his running ability goes, he's more of a scrambler type. He's not going to be like Kyron Drones or Brennan Armstrong, where he's just like a bulldozer up the middle. He's only 180 pounds. He's 6 feet, 180 pounds. If he played for Virginia Tech, our fans would be like, oh my gosh, we can't rush him more than 5 times a game because he can't get hurt, right? And I agree, you can't. He's not going to be your up the middle, let's just grind it out over 4 quarters. He does so much of his damage through scrambling. And a lot of his big passing plays come off scrambles. He's very much, I'm not saying he's as good as Tyrod Taylor or any such thing, but he plays more like Tyrod Taylor than Gerard Evans, whereas, Kyron Drones plays more like Gerard Evans. They're different styles of quarterbacks. I don't think they can have the exact same game plan as like NC State did last year, just because of the difference in size of the quarterbacks. Like Brennan Armstrong is just a much bigger, more durable guy.
Well, you talk about the quarterback being able to run the football, and he might be the only guy out there that can run the football. Virginia, they really struggle to run the ball on the offensive side. Yards per game, 124.73. That is 101st in the country out of 133. Yards per carry, they're 123rd in the country out of 133. They really just do not run the rock very well, Chris.
And, their top 2 running backs for this game averaged 3.1 and 3.5 yards per carry, respectively. So this seems like a game that they're going to have to win through the air, and the rushing yards they do get comes with Calandria's legs. That's been kind of the story for them this season.
This feels like this has been a decade-long problem at UVA, finding just a running back that you can. I'm sure they've had somebody that's going to prove me wrong on that, but year after year, it feels like finding a way to run the ball traditionally with the running back has been an issue there. And I think that sits on the offensive line. That's the biggest problem there. But I think that helps Virginia Tech's defense. I think they've been good against one-dimensional attacks, frankly. Maybe last week, notwithstanding, maybe NC State had a little bit more ability than we thought coming into that game. But the focal point of this offense will certainly not be running the ball with the backs, and trying to slow down Malik Washington will be the biggest key of this thing.
All right, well, let's go there. You mentioned Malik Washington. They quietly have one of the best wide receivers in the country, plain and simple. He's second in the nation in both receptions and receiving yards, tied for 15th in touchdowns. This is a guy that Virginia Tech's going to have to key in on.
96 catches, 1,311 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's a pretty good career.
What was Northwestern doing with this guy?
He caught like 60 passes last year.
It wasn't this. Like,
not
my
this.
goodness.
Not this at all. Now, this is interesting because it'll be the best, or at least most prolific wide receiver that the Virginia Tech corners have faced this year, except the Virginia Tech corners aren't going to really face him. He's 5'8", 194 pounds, and probably spends 85 to 90% of his time lined up in the slot. So it's not like Dorian Strong or Mansour Delane are going to be matched up man-to-man against this guy. Virginia Tech's going to have to play disciplined zone defense in the back end. That's how you slow him down. I don't think you're going to just see a whole lot of man coverage against him.
Yeah, sometimes they put Dorian in the slot. I think you've seen that in a couple of formations. I'm curious. He's their best cover guy. Do you try to get your best cover guy and the best receiver and shadow him a little bit. I don't know enough about defense to know how they do it, but I just know if you have a really good cornerback and against a really good receiver, maybe you want to match them up occasionally on the field.
Well, possibly part of their run woes and the fact that the quarterbacks have had to run for their life is the offensive line has seen some struggles and better days for Virginia as well. Yeah,
and they've rolled out the same starting lineup for the last couple of games. They've done better. Their best tackle is their left tackle, Mikael Boley, but he went off the field injured last week against Duke, although he did walk off under his own power, so we don't know his status this week. Ty Furnish is undersized at right guard, hasn't played particularly well. Blake Steen at right tackle. Both those guys have struggled big time in pass blocking, but they've had some other players that they've worked in there as well who were even worse. So these guys are really, they've been the best of a bunch of bad players so far. And they've now, the fact that it's stabilized for them the last couple games has helped them out, but it's still not good.
I think Tech and UVA are kind of in similar spots with their offensive line, where a couple years ago they had this rush of guys that were really good all leave the program. Now Tech had a lot of those guys go pro, a couple transferred, Nestor and Brian Hudson. UVA had basically its entire offensive line transfer.
Well, they got tired of catching passes.
Right, exactly. Exactly. When that happens, you're starting over. And like we said, it's a slow build sometimes on the offensive line. It's tough to bring in transfers that fit your system, or that, an offensive line transfer goes in the portal and everybody is on that guy immediately. I mean, it's just tough to find, large human beings who are good at what they do on the offensive line. So you got to develop that sort of organically within your program, and that takes time. And you got to recruit those guys in high school. They got to redshirt. They got to get bigger, stronger, and they got to develop over the years. And that's not an overnight process. And I think you're seeing that at both Virginia Tech and Virginia, and maybe it's going to lead to a lot of sacks on Saturday.
Before we get to the defensive side of the football and we talk some of the history of the rivalry and things like that, this is kind of the time where we'd kind of toss it to David. So instead, we'll keep the conversation here. And I'll ask you guys thoughts on Tony Elliott. Was that like a great hire for UVA? What were your thoughts when that happened? Because he's a second-year guy just like Brent Pry.
Doesn't seem great so far. I think they've made improvements, the last few weeks, of course. But when it comes down to it, they win 3 games last year, or was it 2?
3, I believe. 3
last year, and then 3 this year. So you're 6-15 so far as a head coach. I think they found something at quarterback for sure. How well can he recruit? I don't know. He's certainly showed the ability to go out to the portal and find a top wide receiver, but they're going to need a running back. They're going to need a lot, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's working so far, but that doesn't mean that it won't. It's still early in his tenure. The funny thing is, like, when it was rumored that Tech was considering firing Fuente at the end of the 2020 season, we kept hearing that Tony Elliott was a guy that Witt was really interested in. Whether that's true or not, we know how coaches searches are. No idea. But that was a guy that Tech fans were talking about a lot. Like, he was at or near the top of the list for a number of fans. I remember back then. It was kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah, I think the jury's out on the Elliott hired. I mean, on-field stuff, it is what it is. You're talking about a coach who faced one of the most difficult situations ever that you're ever going to face from a football standpoint, and really not even football. Off the field situation. And I thought he handled it as well as any coach could have. Just, bedrock of the program, face of the program, standing strong for the team, standing strong for the community. I think you look at how he handled that, it was exceptional. And, that sort of filters down onto the field. Like, you have something like that happen. A lot of guys transfer. You lose Marcus Hagens, your receivers coach, who I think, could he have gone back into that receivers room the next year? It's a hard thing to do. So to lose that, to lose some players like that on your team is just an incredibly difficult situation. And, I think you have to factor that into how the program is run and how he's doing. So that's why I don't judge so harshly when I look at this thing. I go, that was an impossible situation to try to navigate. And I think he did a very good job with that. We'll see if they can come out the other side on the football side of things here going forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point there, Andy. Appreciate you bringing that up. Let's talk about Virginia on the defensive side of the football. Chris, we've said all year that it just seems like when Virginia Tech goes into a game where the matchup does favor them, they do pretty well, particularly in Lane Stadium. This one you're going to Scott Stadium instead, but we saw it most recently on the road against Boston College. Well, lucky for Hokie fans, Virginia struggles to stop the run, and Virginia Tech a run-first offense.
They're exactly like Boston College statistically on the defensive side of the ball. They are horrible against the run. And they don't make any plays at all. Like go through the numbers. I know I've got them in my preview right
rush
there.
defense, number 115 out of 133. Yards per carry, 117. Pass defense, 61. Opponent quarterback rating, 60. Total defense, 98. DF plus, 71. And available yards, 72.
And I think if you keep scrolling down, you'll see my the numbers that I put in there as far as tackles for loss, turnovers, and sacks, and how they're basically one of the worst teams in the country.
Yep, 113 out of 133 in tackles for loss. You call these the havoc plays, just like you did against Boston College. Sacks, 132. That is second to last in the country. That's pretty tough right there. Forced fumbles, 75th. Interceptions, 82.
Just like Boston College, they don't get into the backfield. They get moved off the ball rather easily, and they don't force any turnovers. That's not the recipe for playing good defense. And you know, the teams that Virginia Tech lit up also, like Pitt and Wake Forest and Syracuse, they're better defensively than UVA is. So this is an extremely favorable matchup for Virginia Tech. It's very similar to the Boston College matchup. As much as we blast on, you know, Tootin only having 2 carries last week, and, you know, even Drones only having 9. Those guys should be nice and fresh this week for a defense that is very susceptible to the run. And, you know, they've given up some yardage to rushing quarterbacks as well. I think this matchup, you always want to see what your strengths are and how it matches up to the opponent's weakness. Well, in this case for Virginia Tech, their strength matches up extremely well with the UVA weakness, just like it matched up with Boston College. So you've got to come out with the same game plan, I think. I'm not saying you necessarily need to run it 16 times in a row at one point, like Tech did in that game, but you got to go out there and establish the run and then throw off the run. And the defense has to do their part too, because they can't let UVA get an early 2-score lead, which takes Virginia Tech out of their running game plan, you know. So it's going to be a team game, but I really think the matchup in that particular area really favors Virginia Tech.
Yeah, if Tootin doesn't have more touches on the first drive than he did on the last game, then I'm going to question the game plan coming into this one. If you're Virginia Tech, this is about sort of the perfect opponent that lines up with where your weaknesses are. I mean, they really struggle when there's an aggressive defensive front that gets in the backfield and disrupts what they're doing. Well, they're not really facing that this week, and they really struggle when the other team can run the ball or has a tricky run operation. Well, UVA doesn't really have that. So that, you know, you look at those matchups, and then I look at this, I think it's a 3-point line right now, and I go, I don't know, I kind of like Virginia Tech when I look at those numbers.
All right, time to talk a little buy or sell, guys.
Sure.
All right. Why not?
Well, David gets one right and he leaves. He doesn't even follow up his performance. Okay, well, see how it is. He's sitting on the. He's not even in the lead. And he's sitting on the lead.
You should have sent him the questions last night.
I didn't realize he wasn't going to be here. That's my fault. That's my fault. I could always send him to him because this is
not live. This is not live.
That's true. It's not live.
So I can always send him to him. We might have to do that. We might.
He's driving.
True.
You'd have to call him.
Where's he going? Orlando?
Yeah.
Yeah, for hoops.
Yep.
Gotcha. Good spot to be.
He's gonna be in the Deep South. He's going to Orlando, then he's going to Auburn, then he's going to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
He's gonna get spoiled by the Deep South late fall weather and just not come back.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, a reminder, this past week, Chris went 14-11. David also went 14-11. Mr. Bitter went 11-14. Chris took the all-time lead, 60% on his win percentage. David is 53%. Andy is 61-45 for 58%. Guys, this is a make or break week. If Chris wins, he might kind of pull away here. Andy, you got to have a big week here. Are you guys ready to roll?
Yeah. It's a rivalry. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Kyron Drones, 3 or more touchdowns. Chris.
Accounting for 3 or more touchdowns.
Total touchdowns accounted for, rushing or passing.
3. Oh, wow. 3 or more. Buy.
Chris is buying. Andy.
I'm also going to buy that one.
He's going to buy Bashal 2 and anytime touchdown. Andy.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
I'm going to buy. I mean, I think he has to if they're going to win this game. I think they have to use their brain again and give the ball to Bashal Tootin.
All right. Virginia Tech, 46% or better on 3rd down. Andy.
I'm going to sell just because I think that's a big number for this team. I just don't think they're that good on third downs.
Chris.
It is a big number, but if they get themselves in short yardage situations with as bad as UVA is against the run, I'll sell because I just think the number itself is high. But if you'd put it in there at like 41 or 42%, I'd probably be inclined to buy.
I see you're protecting your lead here. I see how this is working.
Yep, let's see how it plays. I'm taking a knee in the. Well, I'm not taking a knee. I'm turtling up in the fourth quarter.
It's funny you say that because I just changed the line from 40% to 46% not 3 minutes ago.
I see.
Game time decision by Vegas. Bashal to in 13 or more carries. I know he only had 2 last week, but 13 or more. We'll go Chris.
You buy any better?
Yeah, I think it's if Tech wants to win, he has to have 13 or more for sure. Yes.
Okay. Anthony Calandria plays the entire game. Andy.
Now, what are we saying play? Because they have this like short yardage thing where they bring in this big bruising quarterback and they shove him from behind.
By that, I mean he is the quarterback, like situation where, injury aside.
He doesn't get benched and he doesn't get knocked out by it with an injury.
Yes.
Okay. I will buy.
You're going to buy. Okay.
I'll buy as well.
You guys are going to buy. I would also buy that. Malik Washington, 8 or more catches, Chris.
8.
He gets a lot of catches, more than you'd think.
He gets 96. Actually, he gets a lot. The best, most prolific receiver Tech has faced, but also some of the best corners that he's faced. You should say 8?
8.
I'll sell.
Ooh. Andy.
I'm going to buy that one.
Okay.
After I shortchanged Casey Concepcion last week, I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Malik Washington touchdown. I know for a fact, spoiler alert, all you guys have UVA still scoring points here. So Malik Washington touchdown.
I'm going to buy that one. I think he's an exceptional receiver, and I think he's their best offensive weapon. They got to get him the ball.
Andy learning from his mistakes last week with KC.
I would definitely buy that as well.
Okay. Virginia Tech, 50% or better in the red zone on touchdown to field goal. Chris.
Oh, I'm trying to remember what my score prediction was. Buy.
He's going to buy. Andy.
I can't remember what my prediction was. I think based on my score, I'm going to have to buy that one. I think I said 31-23, so buy.
Virginia Tech forces a turnover. Have not done it a lot lately.
They have not done it a lot lately.
Actually, not a lot all season, really.
I'm going to buy because I think Calandria is going to put the ball out there for an opportunity.
All right.
Buy as well.
UVA forces a turnover. They also don't do it very much.
No, they don't. I'll sell.
Andy?
I'm going to buy. I think they do get a turnover at some point.
Quan Felton anytime touchdown. Had 2 last week. We'll go Andy first.
I've been selling this every time it happens. I'm going to buy. If I'm going to say Drones is going to account for 3, I think 1 will go to Felton. Yes.
Yeah, I swear half of the wrong answers I've gotten this have been on DeQuan Felton picks this year.
He was really hot and cold for a while there where he was like 100 yards or 3 yards, back and forth. So.
I agree with Andy. If we're going to sit here and say Drones is going to account for 3 touchdowns, probably one of them is going to be to Felton, I would think.
That's fair. Virginia Tech, 2 or more sacks. Can APR finally get, granted this isn't the question, but can Virginia Tech get 2 or more sacks? Can APR finally get his 10th?
UVA is, and God, what are they? Have they allowed something like 38 sacks this year? They're one of the worst in the countries and teams of the country in sacks allowed.
I can fact check that for you.
I'm pretty sure that what's in my preview.
Yes, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, okay.
I'm scrolling.
I want to say something like 125th, 120th, something like that.
I'm looking for it. Trying to skim here.
But at any rate, 2 or more. I know it's a mobile quarterback, but I think they're going to throw it a lot because I think Tech's going to stop their traditional running game. So I will buy.
Yeah, I'm going to buy too. I think not only do they like to throw it a lot, I think Calandria will stick in the pocket to try to throw it a lot because he tries to make plays. He's not going to be one that's like, I'm going to throw it away. He's like, no, I'm going to make whatever I can out of this play, and I think that leads to some sacks.
Andy, Mr. Drones, 60 or more rushing yards.
I'm going to buy it on this one because I think you might see a game plan similar to that BC one where they run him a lot and try to establish things. And I'm not saying he's going to run for 130 or whatever he ran in that game, but I do think he'll get to 60.
Buy.
All right. Virginia Tech, 220 or more passing yards. Chris.
I'll sell just because I think they're going to be so run heavy.
Okay.
I was going to say the exact same thing for that reason.
Okay.
Can't make up any ground for green on everything.
I know. Well, yeah, can you guys stop agreeing with each other? Malachi Thomas, maybe this is a chance to shake it up. You guys think they're going to run it a lot, so you got to think this guy's going to touch the ball. Malachi Thomas, 30 or more rushing yards.
Bye.
Versus buying.
He got that last week on 1 carry.
Oh,
He
he
had
got 16.
16.
The week
He would have
before.
gotten it if he had gotten 2 carries and
That's
averaged
right.
16
That's right.
yards.
Yeah. It was average 16. Yeah.
I will buy this one too because I do think it's going to be very run focused.
Stephen Gosnell, 2 or more receptions. Complete flip side of this then.
Sell.
Selling.
1.
2 receptions, I will buy that. I think he's a nice sort of little safety valve sometimes in this offense.
I think you used that exact same sentence last week in the Stephen Gosnell question.
Well, it holds true. It holds true.
There we go. 2 and 2 or more catches out of the backfield.
Tootin,
For
2
Bayshore.
or more catches. Oof, that's kind of a crapshoot. Bye.
I'm going to buy it because I think they took so much crap last week about how they didn't use him at all that they're like, all right, we got to be a little inventive on how to do that. And you think about screens and stuff like that,
Right.
swing passes. Sometimes they'll motion him out wide, just throw a wide receiver screen to him. So, yes, I'll buy.
All right. Jalen Lane, 40 or more receiving yards. We'll go Andy.
I'll buy. I like Lane. I think he's just their most reliable receiver. Maybe doesn't always get in the end zone. I think he and Felton are tied touchdowns this year.
6.
But I'll buy that one.
Okay.
I'll buy that one as well. Man, their stats are almost dead similar. Sidetrack here. Lane, 37 catches, 524 yards, 6 touchdowns. Felton, 35 catches, 534 yards, 6 touchdowns.
Pretty good additions in the transfer portal.
I would say so.
Yeah, not bad at all. Virginia Tech, 250 or we already asked this question. Oh shoot. All right, my fault, guys. Let's readjust here. Daquan Wright, 2 or more catches.
I'm just gonna randomly sell this week.
I'm going to buy it again.
There we go.
There we go.
I think he looked a little slow in practice the other day, so I think he's a little beat up right now. But I think he's such a valuable guy coming out of that tight end slot. And also, he's got good hands. I mean, he's made some pretty impressive catches in recent weeks. So I think they throw it to him. Yeah.
Calandria, 2 or more touchdowns. We'll go Chris first.
Oh, I'm trying to remember my score prediction. Bye.
I'm going to buy because I think there will be quite a few points in this game.
Interestingly enough, Calandria does not have a single rushing touchdown this season.
Thanks.
Just saying. Hokies, 5 or more plays of 20 or more yards.
I'll buy. I think this will be a lot of offense for the Hokies in this one.
Agreed. I'm buying.
All right. Xavier Turner Bradshaw, 2 or more touches. Could be a catch, could be a carry. We'll go Andy.
I will sell because I think if he's going to get the ball, it's going to be on a reverse. I think they'll try to at least get it to him once, but I don't know if he has any catches this year. Maybe very few.
I know he caught one against Rutgers, I want to say, or Marshall.
They don't throw it to him a lot.
He doesn't actually get in the game very much.
And I think they've talked about his issue has been consistency week to week. So he has that big splash play. You don't really see him much other than that. So I'm selling that.
In a run-heavy offense, there's just not as many opportunities for a receiver. Like we've seen Aiden Green play well over 200 snaps this year, and he's got 4 catches, but he's hardly ever in the game for a passing play.
Plus, I think I bought every other receiving statistical one that we've done. So I got to sell something at some point.
I'm also going to sell that.
All right. Over-under is set at 51.5. Chris, what you taking?
51.5. Over.
Yeah, I'm over. I think I was 31-23 with my prediction, so I'm over on that.
All right. This is kind of not a makeup question, but because I accidentally asked 2 different lines for the passing yards, and we went with the first one that I asked, we'll throw this in here to get our number to 25. APR, 10th sack of the year, coming up on Saturday. Andy?
Yeah, he gets it, finally.
Bye. And if he doesn't get it this week and UVA wins and he's stuck on 9 at the end of the season, we just totally jinxed him. Because it would be like 4 games in a row without a sack, and we're sitting here talking, oh yeah, he's definitely going to get 10. He's definitely going to get 10, right? No doubt about it.
It's weird because 7 came in 2 games, right? 4 against Wake and 3 against Syracuse.
3 in 1 drive.
Yeah.
I think it was 6. Was it 2 and 4?
Okay.
But yeah, he really turned it on at the end of that way. I mean, they've got to be ahead and have some opportunities to be rushing the passer.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, the one game they were ahead in the last few weeks, he was sick that week and didn't play a whole lot of snaps.
Right.
And plus, BC wasn't throwing the ball a ton that way.
Virginia Tech wins. Chris?
Bye. I got it 34-24.
Andy.
I said 31-23, I believe.
All right. Well, unfortunately, you guys only begged to differ with each other like 3 times, so we'll see how it all
This is
shakes
Coleman
out.
sitting on his lead, not trying to take any chance. I need David here to kind of shake things up, too.
You know,
Maybe-
rattle him a little bit.
I could fumble the snap like Arkansas in
true.
98.
Maybe for the bowl game, if it's a situation where it's very close, what we do is I'll record a separate. You guys don't talk about it on the pod to really see, because I feel like sometimes when you guys hear each other, you're like, oh, I got to play it safe. But if you write it down on a sheet of paper, you can't go back.
We'll get these noise-canceling headphones, and you'll ask us each. We'll put a blinder between us so we can't see each other.
We're going to have to invest in like some game show buttons we can push. The audience can see our answers, but we can't.
Yeah,
There you
right.
go.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. That would be pretty awesome.
We could do a Price is Right style, like who's closer to the pick, too.
I just want to bet $1.
Yeah,
True.
that's the strategy, yeah.
Playing it safe, right? In Final Jeopardy, you're not gonna put anything on the line. How about obviously everybody knows the history of this rivalry, but the fact that since 2012, this is what, the 5th time it's happened where Tech is looking for their 6th win, final game of the season. I mean, it does add a little bit of flair here.
Yeah, some interesting moments in there, you know, from Mike London's usage of timeouts in 2012. I think that was the last second field goal by Jernell. You got Michael.
Then he missed one. Then Exum got a pick.
Got a pick, and
then they came down, and then the bad usage of timeouts.
Right.
And that whole game was forgettable. They had the ugly flexing gobbler helmets.
Yes.
It was
it was snowing
yeah.
a little bit. That was not the most entertaining Virginia Tech UVA.
No,
game in history.
everybody's like, "Oh, this is a blip. Virginia Tech just going 6-6. They'll be back."
But
And it's
yeah,
been like
they're
that
back.
ever since. Ever since.
Let's see. 2014 was an exciting game. Now the crazy one about that is Michael Brewer had his shoulder popped out, dislocated during the game. Goes to the side, and he's just throwing shoulder too. Goes to the sideline, gets it popped back in, hits Bucky Hodges on a deep ball, and Virginia Tech wins the game. That was right after UVA had scored with like 2 minutes left to take the lead, and so you're like, well, streak's over. No way you're coming back now. And then they did.
Yeah, that one was unexpected. That's one where you're like, okay, they're done. Somehow won that game. I'm trying to think, 2015 was a pretty good game up there. I believe they were going back and forth. I think Isaiah Ford had a pretty big game, caught a touchdown at the end of that one.
It was another Tech kicked a late field goal, and then I think Tech got an interception on the last drive of the game. Yeah, okay. What I remember about that game is Brewer getting hit so hard in a play early in the game that he actually threw up on the field.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was, I mean, you have the added weight of that one. That was, is this Frank's last game? They lose that game and it's over with, and you see the relief on the sidelines. Bud Foster's coming over and hugging him. Shane's coming over and hugging him.
He was on people's shoulders with the cup after the game. Yeah.
Jeremy Haynes, the walk-on defensive end, he's like, oh, you like worked your way in there for the famous photo. So he's like immortalized forever being there right next to the guys. But, you could tell that one meant a lot to that sideline to be able to continue it and keep playing for Frank. And also, that game, I think everybody kind of knew that Fuente was going to get hired.
Yes.
First or second quarter of that game, Brett McMurphy comes out with a report like stating it, like, okay, they're going to hire him. It's like very bizarre timing of that. So it's like the middle of the game, and I'm like trying to confirm the Fuente hire that we all knew was going to happen. And the game's taking place. And it's like, this is just bad timing of this whole thing.
I do remember that. I was at that game in the crowd, and my phone worked during a football game. Imagine that. So yes, I got that news during a game. If that happened today, I wouldn't get it because my phone wouldn't work. But
yeah, well, it's certainly not in Blacksburg. It wouldn't work.
Right, exactly.
Maybe other stadiums have better Wi-Fi capabilities.
How do we think the crowd's going to be on Saturday? Like 60-40 in favor of Tech, or what do you guys think?
I don't know what the percentage breakdown will be, but somebody hit me like, Nick, you paid $70 for it, and somebody else hit me up earlier this week. He's like, what do you make of these $70 ticket prices? And I'm like, well, for a stadium that's normally 40% empty a lot of times, it probably means there's going to be a lot of Virginia Tech fans there.
I would imagine, just based on Tech's playing for something, UVA is just playing to be a spoiler in this one. So usually it's a pretty good showing by the Virginia Tech crowd at this one. A lot of maroon.
Yeah, I thought the 2015 game seemed like it was about 50-50 if you look at the crowd shots. And I don't know about 2019 or 2021, but there's going to be a lot of Tech fans.
Well, if Tech wins and we're going bowling, where do you think we're going?
See, it sounds like the military bowl.
Military bowl
just makes the most sense.
It does. I've seen Sun Bowl as a projection
against USC.
Yeah,
that would be so
that would be
cool.
an interesting matchup. I don't know. There'd be a lot of teams, and also it would depend on does Florida State get into the playoff? Right. If they get to the playoff, that bumps Louisville up to the Orange Bowl. Presumably, it'd be the next highest ranked team. Does a Big Ten team play in the Orange Bowl against the ACC? Because that would open up the ReliaQuest Bowl, which I can't remember what it used to be called. One of those Orlando bowls, I think maybe. Or
how many bowls are in Orlando now?
Yeah, a ton. But if that opens up, then all of a sudden, Notre Dame's going to that one because Notre Dame's part of the ACC bowl order. So, if you get a team in the playoff, it's possible that could move everybody up 2 rungs in the whole bowl pecking order. You don't, and all of a sudden it's like, well, team in the Orange Bowl, maybe you don't open up the ReliaQuest Bowl, and that bumps everybody down. So still a lot of jockeying that can take place here. My thought is if this team is 6-6 and they don't get to the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte, which is one that makes sense a lot just because of proximity, Annapolis and the Military Bowl will take Virginia Tech every opportunity that it can.
Absolutely.
Just based on the DC alumni, typically you're talking about like Duke or BC or Pitt in the mix for a game like that. They don't travel. They're not going to, fill that stadium. And not that Virginia Tech fills it up, but it's a much, much better crowd when the Hokies are involved in that game.
I would like to personally not play in the Military Bowl just because you'll probably get to play a Power 5 opponent elsewhere, and in the Military Bowl that's not the case.
I've looked at some of the Military Bowl projections, and it's like SMU or Memphis, which could be pretty interesting.
Those are quality teams.
I mean, if SMU, you get future ACC member SMU coming in there, you get a preview.
But wouldn't you rather play Lincoln Riley and USC, even though Caleb Williams wouldn't even play?
If the option is playing USC in the Sun Bowl or some
like Tennessee in the
AAC
Duke's Mayo
team
Bowl
in the Military Bowl, you would take the Pac-12, whatever it is right now, team every day of the week. So I just don't know if they get to 6-6, I don't know if 6-6 gets you to the Sun Bowl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Probably not.
There's going to be a lot of teams right in the middle of that ACC, though, that, Miami could be 6-6. Georgia Tech could be 6-6. BC could be there's just a ton of teams in there that could have the exact same record.
Cuse. They're 5-6 right now with one one more left.
They're rallying down the stretch.
They got who do they got? Wake Forest. That's a winnable game.
It's definitely a winnable game.
Definitely a winnable game.
Imagine getting fired and you actually win your last 3 games. Well, he won't be coaching this week, so.
Yeah, they actually gave him the option, and he said,
no, we're done.
I mean, that's what happened at Virginia Tech with Fuente.
That's right.
They gave him the option to finish out the year.
I think the option was on the table, and he's like, "That's all right.
Yeah,
if you're gonna fire
let's
me.
get on with this."
Yeah. I think a matchup with USC appealing from a name standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, I don't think would be very entertaining. I don't.
Well, Caleb Williams wouldn't play. I mean, there's 0% chance he would play in that
That's
game.
a good point.
How many guys would opt out?
Less than zero. It's like
Right.
negative 500% chance.
Shows you everything that's wrong with bowl season.
I think
now.
I saw
agreed. 12-team playoff.
The Action Network, when Brett McMurphy does his bowl projections, he's the one who had Tech in the Sun Bowl in that one, and they put a projected line on it. I think it was USC by 8.5. And I'm assuming they are factoring in the Caleb Williams 0% chance that he would play in that game. I'm surprised he even played these last few games now that the season's over, the way that he seems to have his attitude about his next step in his career. So 0% chance he plays in the bowl game, and I don't know who else would at USC if they have a couple other opt-outs.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on this matchup before we turn everyone loose and talk to him again on Monday?
Just the main point that I made after the NC State game is I think this is an important game for perception. I think Virginia Tech has made strides this year, and I think there was a good in-season coaching job after the Marshall game to keep the team mentally focused and to get the offense headed in the right direction. I think that was a good coaching job, and they deserve credit for it. I'm afraid if they lose in the season with a loss to UVA, that's going to taint a lot of the good things that they've done in the eyes of a lot of people. So I'm hopeful that they can close it out with a win for multiple reasons, that being one of them. I think you'll just feel like the program's heading in the right direction if you go 6-6, whereas you're 5-7, you don't feel that as much because it's a +2. Like, you won 3 last year, so you win 5 this year. It's +2. But at the same time, if the UVA game had been played last year and Tech had won, they would have gone 4-8. So it was like adding only 1 win this year. Is that really that great a job when you added so many good players in the portal?
Would they have won last year?
We don't know. We don't know. It wouldn't have been pretty. Yeah, there's
with
no
that
way
team,
to know.
there's no guarantees
Correct.
of anything.
There was no guarantee either way. But yeah, I just think it's important. I think it'd be great for Brent Pry to go 6-6, because I just think losing to UVA at the end of this year, when you do have a matchup advantage in the running game, I think it, in the eyes of a lot of people, it would undo the good things that you accomplished during the course of the season.
Yeah, I'll echo that, and so I'm not going to repeat exactly what you said because I'm of the same opinion. It's just good to have this game back, right? Like, it felt strange, and it was appropriate last year not to play the game. But you missed something during the season. You don't have that capper at the end of the year. It felt incomplete to finish the season and not play UVA. And I know this series has been lopsided, but it still have been some great games, some close games, memorable games. And these are the ones that you dine on for years if you're a Virginia Tech fan. And, you know, we talked about some of the previous ones that were close calls, and they pulled it out at the end. So just to have this game back at the end of the schedule, I think, you know, we talked about maybe some of the players don't quite understand the rivalry as personally as other players. I think when they get on that field, they will feel it. And you'll feel that intensity. And even though these aren't 2 great teams, it is still a great game to go cover and watch as a fan. So I'm excited to have it back. It feels right to have it back in place.
This is I'm a junior here. This is my first Tech UVA game, because freshman year, home for Thanksgiving. Freshman year, you know, it didn't make the trip.
Well, think about next year. It'll be the first time Virginia Tech fans will be able to watch this game in Lane Stadium since 2018? Because they missed the COVID year, and then last year got
canceled. I felt bad
canceled.
for Tech seniors last year. Katie Adams, who was our podcast host, she pointed out to us, went my whole college career and didn't get to see Virginia Tech host UVA.
Yeah.
And Nick also, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
who cares about Nick? We're talking about
the mustache man. I have to give massive props to Nick. He invited me to Thanksgiving, so I can't wait to do that tomorrow. Gentlemen, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Andy, we'll see you up in Charlottesville. Have a safe drive up there. And this was a fun one. We'll talk to you guys again on Monday. For Nick Brown, for Andy Bitter, for Chris Coleman, I'm Giovanni Heater, signing off from Blacksburg.